Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, What You Need to Know to Become a Successful Independent Consultant, featuring Catherine Morgan of Point A to Point B Transitions Incorporated. Catherine, next slide, please. My name is Emily Stringer, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. A little background on me. I've been with MBO Partners for over 6 years. As a consultant services advisor, I respond to requests from independent contractors who are curious about MBO service offerings. This is done through consultation appointments where we can learn a little bit about your background and your needs, and then we'll run estimates to help determine if MBO services are the right fit for you. Next slide, please. MBO's mission statement is to make it easy for independent consultants and their clients to work together. For a quick high-level overview, we offer a complete all-inclusive business operating system for independent consultants. We take care of the administrative items that are typically outsourced to several different vendors, like incorporation, contract review, liability coverage, invoicing, expense review and processing, tax withholding and payroll, and access to tax-efficient portable benefits, etc. Next slide, please. Now for some housekeeping on the webinar setup. You can see the controls listed here. We will be taking questions throughout that will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Any questions that we do not get to will be answered via email after the presentation. We will also be emailing the slide deck and a recorded copy of the entire webinar to all registrants within the next week. Next slide, please. If you want to follow the presentation on Twitter, use #MBOWeb to submit your questions and comments, and handles MBO Partners, @MBO Partners. Next slide, please. A brief introduction on Catherine. Catherine Morgan is a consultant to the consultants and the founder of Point A to Point B Transitions Incorporated, a business that provides career transition expertise. Catherine is an experienced independent consultant and former employee of three of the former Big Five consulting firms. Catherine combines strategy development and accountability. Is my sound still there?
No, you kicked out on Catherine provides business strategy consulting.
Oh, I apologize. I think we can hear me better now. I believe my headset went out. Catherine has worked with three of the former Big Five consulting firms. She combines strategy development with accountability coaching, and she speaks frequently on topics related to productivity, career transition, small business, and entrepreneurship. And she was named a Top 100 Small Business Influencer in 2015. Catherine doesn't take herself seriously, but takes her subject matter very seriously. And you'll see that in just a few moments in our webinar. Catherine, from here, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so I think we start here with the first poll, correct?
This is McLean with MBO Partners, and yes, we'll start here with the first poll.
Where are you with your business at the current time? Please select one of the following: idea stage, launching, less than 1 year, or more than 1 year. We'll give you a few minutes to chime in here with your answers, and after about 30 seconds, we'll move on to see what our results are. About 15 more seconds here. All right, time is up. So based on our participants, we're looking at 34% who are in the idea stage, 21% who are launching, 15% who are less than 1 year, and 30% who are more than 1 year.
Oh, fantastic. Then they're in the right place. Okay, here we go. So I'm so glad to be able to talk to you today and share some of the things that I have learned about being an independent consultant and working with other independent consultants. I reached out to my community to find out what other colleagues of mine and small business coaches think were the most important characteristics for a successful independent consultant. And I got a bunch of great information, but when I sort of consolidated it around specific topics, it boiled down to about 5 things. The first is having flexible thinking, being able to see things from different points of view and not getting stuck on your own point of view as being the right way or the only way. I also heard about issues with confidence and maintaining confidence in yourself, your skills, your ability to solve client problems. That was very important. Honesty came up from a bunch of people, saying what you can do, saying what you can't do, clearly communicating, that being authentic, that seemed to be important. Not surprisingly, great customer service also made the cut. Being able to exceed client expectations. As a small business, you should be able to give the personal touch, to be able to, really help people and not, quote red tape or we always do things a certain way. You should be able to go the extra mile for your clients. And this was a big one too, time management. You need great time management skills to be a successful independent consultant. And I'm going to add one more thing. This morning I was quoted in a roundup of top small business experts about what was the one most important thing as a successful business owner. And I said that you needed to master the graceful swan dive face plant, meaning you will at some point fall on your face and you need to just be able to get up like that gymnast who totally misses and hit your feet on the mat, stand up, raise your hands over your head, shake it off, and smile at the crowd. And you have, great resources available to you. Back office services like MBO Partners. Boy, I wish I'd known they existed in my last business. Accountants, lawyers, SCORE, Small Business Association. But what I really find is the key to success for independent consultants revolves around mindset and what you're telling yourself and how you're presenting yourself in the marketplace. So that's what we're going to tackle today. If you're starting a business, if you're new in your business, if you're launching a new product or service, you are going to run up against fear. Fear is often what holds us back, and there are different aspects of fear that affect us. We're afraid of what we don't know, and a lot of times we don't know what we don't know that we should be afraid of. We're afraid of looking foolish, silly in front of our colleagues, our clients, our friends, our family. And worse, we're afraid of failing. I mean, what if we start this business and it takes a lot longer to ramp up than we thought, or we mess up a client project, or we fail? Ick. That is really, really scary. But you will need to get hands-on with your fear and learn how to manage it. You will have it, but managing against it is going to be very important for your future success. My friend Carol Roth is the author of a book called The Entrepreneur Equation. It was a New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller. And she always says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And this is true, but as we talked about in the last slide, you will fail. And you'll probably fail a lot. So you're going to want to embrace what's called the lean startup methodology. And this was initially geared to tech companies, but it works for services professionals as well. You're going to want to put something together, get it out into the market, get responses, see if people buy it, see how it takes you to deliver it. And then if it doesn't work, you fall back, you think about what worked, what didn't work, what could be improved, adapt, and go forward again. So what I'm trying to tell you is planning is great, except that as much as you research, as much as you talk to focus groups or previous colleagues or vendors or whatever, things will turn out differently, or they may turn out differently. Markets change, industries change, government regulations change, and you need to be okay with this. If you were, if you wanted everything to be, all easy and just managing against someone else's plan or strategy, you'd still be in corporate. You wouldn't be starting your own business. And I'll remind you that if there was an easy way, we'd all be doing it. You need to step into your power. This is the thing that I find people trip up more than anything else. I have had very experienced executives come into the small business side of my practice, and they had 250 people reporting to them. They had brought in $50 million deals. They had good business development skills, or they were very strong technicians in whatever they delivered. Telecommunications, expense management, consulting, whatever. But when you find yourself going out into the market, and some of this is tied back to fear, but you can sort of question, oh my goodness, can I really do this? And if I'm confident that I can do this, can I actually do it on my own? Oh my goodness. You need to adopt the business owner mindset. And as much as possible, get a little distance from watching yourself do the work so you can consider how you're going to market and not just be seeing it from your personal delivery point of view. I also want to talk to you a little bit about what I call the big brand trap. When you roll out of a Deloitte, an AT&T, a Microsoft, whatever, you have been vetted by a big brand, and you may have some concerns as to whether someone is going to take you and your skills seriously when you're no longer under the aegis of the big brand. And I want to tell you that while that used to be something that we had to be concerned about more and more, as we move to the freelance, independent consulting, contract work-based economy, that is less and less an issue. And I would suggest that it might be an issue more for you than your prospective clients. So don't get caught in the big brand trap. View it as something that you accomplished, view it as being vetted by a respected brand, but your skills are your skills. Own them. They're yours. So while you need to know yourself and your skills, you also need to know a little bit about your personality and how you work best. I have watched some very competent professionals roll out of corporate, start their own independent consulting business, living the quote-unquote dream of, being on a laptop in their pajamas and a headset, and not be liking it and not understand why. What happened was someone who is a natural extrovert, who gets energized and inspired by other people, having that kind of a business can be a recipe for clinical depression. If you are that kind of person, and you know you are, you're going to want to work out of a co-working space where you can interact with other people, or you're going to want to partner up with other independent consultants, or you're going to want to get hired by one of the body shops. So that's something to think about. If you're a natural introvert, you also need to manage against that, because you might spend too much time alone and not interact with others and not get the ideas and the juice that you need for your business.
On to our next poll. What qualities make a successful consultant? Please select all that apply. Confidence, communication skills, flexibility, determination, or all of the above. We'll give you about 60 seconds to answer here. Thirty more seconds. Fifteen seconds. And we can close that poll. So what we've got is 100% of our visitors answered all of the above.
Congratulations, you guys were paying attention. I like it. Right, so let's move on. Let's talk about surviving the emotional roller coaster. When you have your own business, you are very connected to your business's successes and failures, and they will affect your energy, no doubt. Running your own business is a joy and a challenge. You are the janitor and the CEO, and every time you get asked to submit a proposal, you're going to get this jolt of energy followed by this jolt of fear, like, can you get it? Can you do the proposal? How do you price the work? Oh my gosh, what if I do get it? I'm already sold out. And then there's the other side. If somebody puts your project on hold or tells you no, you're gonna feel like it was personal, and it maybe wasn't. Maybe they just didn't have the budget. Maybe this wasn't the right time for them to move forward with something. So what I suggest is that, even on the bad days, and you will have some, and you'll have great days, wonderful days, exciting days, but on the days when you're sort of meh, or you're just coming down with the flu, do something every day to move your business forward. And the reason for that is very simple. When you wake up the next day, the last thing you want to do is be beating yourself up for what you did not do the day before. So if you can wake up, point to what you did the day before, you start at least, even, if not a little bit jazzed. Also, you need to concentrate on the things you can control. You can control being professional. You can control being prepared. You can control meeting your deadlines. You can't control when people are going to reach out back to you. You can't control that your key contact that you've been 6 months in a sales cycle with gets fired or promoted, and now you have to build a relationship with the next person. Those you can't control, and don't let them throw you off your game. They're just part of doing business as an independent consultant. We independent consultants essentially rent our brains. People want what we have inside our head. They want access to our experience, to our judgment, to our industry knowledge. And you will have a much easier time presenting yourself, having sales conversations, closing business, if you are seen as a thought leader or an expert. Because you can show your resume, or you can say you did this or that, but unless people can see what you did in the form of a blog post, a presentation, a case study, a white paper, public speaking, it takes you up the know, like, and trust ladder very fast. And remember, what you say that you know, people question. What other people, meaning testimonials, referrals, recommendations, ranks higher in the person receiving that information. And then when they can see what's actually in your head in the form of thought leadership, That is, the cherry on top. So this doesn't have to be overly complicated. You don't have to do all of this. If you're really good on your feet and speaking extemporaneously, do some short talking head videos, 2-minute captures on your iPhone or iPad. It's totally fine. Right? If you're a good writer, write some blog posts. If you have your own website, post it on your website first, wait a couple days, then post the same thing on LinkedIn Pulse. For those of you who don't know what LinkedIn Pulse is, that is a blogging platform that is connected to your LinkedIn profile. Hopefully you have a nice warm network on LinkedIn, people who know you and like you, who've worked with you before, prospective clients, you're following companies you'd like to do business for. And when you publish content on LinkedIn Pulse, there's a notification that gets pushed to each of your contacts. So while they may or may not read your content, it almost doesn't matter because they just got pinged with the fact that you published something, which makes you immediately top of mind if they see that. A personal example of sort of acquaintance friend of mine saw that I published something recently on my LinkedIn profile and reached out to me to possibly coach his son. And he just, sort of forgotten that I do this kind of work. That's going to, become a couple $1,000s to me. Hello, for a blog post. Good use of your time. The other thing is get over the scarcity mindset. If you came out of a politically charged corporate environment, you might still see things in the form of, if they get something, I don't have something. And that's not true as an independent consultant. It's a really big pie. And the 12 clients that I can work with is not going to take food out of your mouth, even if you do exactly the same thing as I do. The only people who maybe have a case is, certain leading edge technology. But in short, ideas are worth nothing. So if you're afraid of putting your ideas and thought leadership out there, do not. It's all about execution. And relationships. Success is all about relationships as an independent consultant. My friend Bonnie Carpe says relationships are the currency of the new economy, and I completely agree with her. I want you to think about connecting with others, depending on what you do, people who provide complementary services. For example, a small business coach who has a focus on marketing and social media might want to connect with someone who has a background in helping small businesses navigate through finances, or with accountants, or with lawyers. You could be great referral partners for each other if you are targeting the same type of client. But given the fact that ideas aren't, it's all about execution, I strongly recommend that you connect with other consultants who do very similar things. And you're scratching your head possibly about this. Some of my best referral partners are small business coaches, but they do something slightly different. I only work with brain renters, independent consultants. If you have a product or a brick and mortar business or a restaurant or a health and wellness practice, I can't help you. I have nothing to bring to that party. If you want to start a solo consulting business, I have a lot to bring to that party. So my small business coaches, somebody needs a business plan, I refer them to Rebecca. Somebody needs marketing help, I refer them to my friend Victoria. And they refer people to me. So don't be afraid to connect. If you are a financial consultant or an organizational change leader or an executive leadership person, connect with others, because the universe has kind of a strange sense of humor, and you might get a bunch of projects all at once and be completely sold out and need someone to sub under you, and they might need someone to sub under them. This can be quick and easy money. So keep your network warm with people who provide complementary services to yours, as well as people who provide similar services. Do not be precious with this. The other joy of collaborating with independent consultants and other small business owners is you'll learn a ton. You'll make friends. You'll make personal friends. You'll make professional friends. You'll stay excited about your business. You'll have people to give in-person or virtual high fives to. You will grow your business faster if you collaborate and work with other people. I promise, no consultant should be an island. It's a recipe for stale services, depression, and just general crankiness. When you have the support of peers, of coaches if you need it, or SCORE or MBO or whoever, the people you need to put input, give their input on your business, you're going to be able to see blind spots in your strategy or your execution. You might come up with the best go-to-market plan you can imagine and it doesn't work and you can't figure out why. And someone else is going to be able to take a look at it and just immediately see what you could tweak a little bit to have it work, or that it's not right for your target market, but it would be great for this other target market. Leverage the wisdom of the group, because we are all better when we work together. Even as an independent consultant, I often write posts that say you should be solo but not alone. And you get accountability. If you tell somebody else that you're going to do something, you're much more likely to do it. We can launch the third poll.
Collaborating with similar and complementary service providers is a great success strategy. True or false? We'll give you about 30 seconds on this one. And we can close this poll. Catherine, I think we're getting a very clear message across here because we answered 100% true.
These guys are awesome. I love this. Guys and gals, I don't mean nothing by the guys thing. Okay, here we go. My best advice to you as service providers is start small. There's that fun consulting term, don't try and boil the ocean. This is especially true for solo consultants, because we only have ourselves and we need to jealously and carefully guard our time. It's very careful, it's a big risk to throw time at things because you feel like you have it, but don't. Pretend that, would you pay somebody else to do this? Is this a good use of your time? Independent consultants are so prone to shiny object syndrome and throwing ourselves at the next thing that looks fun, interesting, exciting. But start small. You can get stuck in perfectionism. You can get stuck in analysis paralysis. Do a proof of concept. Take it out to real people with real checkbooks who would pay you and see if they're interested, see if they buy. If they don't buy, fall back, look at what worked, look at what didn't work, keep what worked, change what didn't work, go back to market. But start small. You only need one introductory service. Often consultants start with some kind of an easy to deliver assessment or gap analysis. I can tell you I've worked for KPMG, Arthur Andersen, and Deloitte, and that's what we did when we went to market. We came up with something quick and cheap to deliver that had value for the client to build the relationship that we then could take to go deeper and for a longer, more expensive project. Step away from the laptop. So tempting for those of us who tend towards the introvert side of the scale. We love being behind our laptop and just sending emails and not picking up the phone, or not going to face-to-face networking, or not public speaking. But I can tell you that it's the faster path to the cash is doing some face-to-face, because you get up the know, like, and trust continuum faster when people see you either public speaking or at networking meetings or coffee meetings or whatever, however it makes sense to, lunch meetings, whatever makes sense for your business. And don't be seduced by friends and family telling you how brilliant you are. They may be on topic, they may be off topic, but either way, they're probably not the ones who are going to be writing checks to you to make your business successful. As Seth Godin says, ship. Get your thought leadership out there. Everybody is a publisher. There is zero barrier to entry to be a publisher. You like to make PowerPoint decks, put them up on SlideShare, embed them in your LinkedIn profile. You did something great for a client, create a case study, put it up on your website, put it up on SlideShare, embed it in your LinkedIn profile. You have to create thought leadership to be seen as an expert, to generate inbound interest, and to close business with prospective buyers. It just makes your life so much easier. Oops, sorry. And connect with other consultants. I can't stress this highly enough. I was out with some former colleagues of mine, clients actually, last night, and I was talking about some of the things I was covering today on this webinar, and about the fact that you need to connect with other people who do similar things. And the woman who was sitting with me, she said, oh, I was just at a women's business certification class given by the city of New York, and they said the exact same thing, that it was really critical to success. So I felt very smart. But now I'd like to open it up to your questions. I know that we were getting questions even before the webinar starts, so I'll hand it back to you, Emily.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. We really appreciate your wisdom on this subject. It was a pleasure having you join us. So to launch our last poll, would you like more information from MBO Partners or from Catherine Morgan? We'll give you about 60 seconds here. About 30 more seconds. We're at 70%. All right, we can go ahead and close out this poll. Great, thank you all. So next we'll delve into some of the questions that we have from our participants here, and we will take them one at a time. So first and foremost, just to circle back to our housekeeping items, have we recorded the webinar, and will the participants be receiving a copy? We have several of those inquiries out there. The answer to that is yes, we've recorded this webinar. We will be sending out a slide deck within the next week. So please stay tuned for that to be released. So Catherine, next question, and this is something that I hear very frequently. When consultants are attempting to launch a business, about how long do you typically see as the turnaround from when they begin to attempt to launch the business to when the business begins to monetize?
Oh, sure. You can't start me with a softball, huh? Okay.
Not at all.
All right, let's dive into this. I've seen a bunch of different things happen. I have seen people roll out of their corporate job right into a consulting project. Actually, that happened to me with my previous consulting business. Arthur Andersen went under, and I got hired by a former Andersen partner to come in and do an assessment about what the new company could reasonably sell and serve to meet their new public company requirements of quarterly revenue. So you can have situations where you roll out, you get your first project, and you're already making a little money. In some ways that's ideal, and in some ways it's not, because then you have not built what I call your foundation. You don't have your thought leadership established. You probably don't have your website. You don't have your, if you want a logo or not. You haven't gotten all that back end stuff. But of course, bringing money in right away is great. Others I've seen completely obsess on the front end, paying obscene amounts of money for a logo. I was very concerned about looking professional because of the types of people I tend to attract are out of big brands and expect a certain look and feel. But I took the middle path. I did a WordPress site. I found a young, very talented designer to do my logo, which I still love 6 years later. I thought carefully about my colors. The way I present in the market is kind of bold but colorful, and has almost a comic book feel to it, so it's professional, yet it still has a lightness. The question was around how long it takes, and I think you need to have a middle ground. You can't go crazy on the front end, dotting your I's, crossing your T's, making sure everything's perfect, obsessing about every WordPress plugin. On the other hand, you probably should have something. So what I would recommend is you follow the start small methodology. Just get out there with some simple kind of assessment, a low barrier to entry service that you can get some money coming in and be doing some client work, but still have some time to be building your foundation. And as far as a timeline goes, I'd probably say, 0 to 3 months, maybe as long as 6 months, depending on the sales cycle of what you're selling. But don't go out there with a big, expensive product and have to be, basically eating time, investing your time in the business development process for 6 months or a year, because you'll just be exhausted and you won't feel like you're making any progress.
That's great advice, Catherine. Thank you for your input on that topic. So another question we've had come up a couple of times is, what are your thoughts on websites like freelancer.com, Upwork, and other marketplace platforms for independent contractors?
I'm sorry, was that groan out loud? Depending on what you do, that can be a nice add-on. What my personal experience has been with them is that it seems to be a fight to the bottom. When you commoditize a service, it gets to be a conversation strictly about price and not about your value or differentiation in the marketplace. So if what you offer is sort of quick and easy for you to deliver, that might be a good choice for you. However, if you're looking to get paid on the higher end because you have, 20 years of experience, or because what you deliver is of objectively higher value, that could be a giant time suck and not have the kind of financial payoff that you're hoping for.
Good advice there. So next we'll move on to contacting new clients and former employers. What is your best advice on how to introduce yourself to a business that you would like to work with, but you don't already have a contact with?
connecting on LinkedIn can be a good way to go. That seems to work better for some people than a cold email, doing some research. Here's the thing about LinkedIn, though. You may not know somebody at that company, but if you're smart and you're connected with a bunch of people, somebody they know, like you may have a second or third degree connection somewhere. You can also reach out by offering some sort of resource. You can sort of piggyback on a press release or a blog post that the company put out, and say, oh, I read with great interest your post on utilizing big data analytics for customer retention. I happen to be a specialist in that area, and I was wondering if you'd seen X. I've also, this sounds weird, but it's true. I've had great success connecting with people on Twitter. I have built relationships with all sorts of really famous people, and really on Twitter or through the comments on their blog posts or via Facebook. Don't get sucked into social media so that you're spending all your time there, but depending on the type of business you have, that can be a way to connect. So LinkedIn, Twitter, or cold outreach email, getting introduced in, just explore your different options and see which way makes the most sense.
That's great advice. We would actually give the same guidelines here, so that is good to know. Now, regarding the ethics of contacting a client that you worked with under a former employer, what is your take on that?
Well, you may have some, if you have a non-compete that you need to adhere to, there may be something in your employment agreement where you had, 6, 12, 18, whatever months where you can't do that. If you have built a friendship that expanded beyond the business relationship, for example, if you were their sales rep for 4 years, they're going to know that you're not there and probably reach out to you. Be ethical. Don't, immediately go and try and underwrite or take away clients. But if you sort of adopt the do unto others as you would have them do unto you thought process, that should work out better. Here's the thing about the new world of work. These people and your former colleagues, chances are pretty good you're going to bump into them again. So, always take the high road. Don't burn bridges. Don't go for the quick money that's going to limit your options going forward.
Great advice there as well. So while we're on the subject of business ethics, we have a question regarding whether or not it's ethical to use pre-business experiences you've worked on for other case studies. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't have a problem with it, but you may not be able to use client names. So you may have to do what the big consulting firms do, which is, Fortune 50 retailer or, mid-size technology consulting company. There's some way that you can explain what that company was or did without using a client name, and often case, companies have gag orders. You're not allowed to use their name. So you might have to go about it that way, but I don't have any problem with you saying that you worked on a project, through a former employer, you worked on a project and described the project and claimed the knowledge that you gained from that project as your own. I don't have any issues with that at all.
Okay, great. That is an excellent perspective. Another question we've seen pop up a couple of times here. Do you have a preference on CRM or prospecting systems? And what are your thoughts on using that as a startup entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I don't have a particular preference or recommendation. Some people, use LinkedIn for that. Some people, what was that? There's a bunch of different ones. Microsoft Outlook has sort of an expanded version of that can work for people. People have used different stuff. It's a tool. It's like, did you buy a Samsung or LG smartphone? It kind of doesn't matter. It's what you like the interface of. It's what's going to work for you. It's what's going to work well with your email provider. You probably don't need the Cadillac, when the Volkswagen will do, is what I'd say. Don't get sucked into, going immediately to Infusionsoft or some, program that costs you a couple $100 a month, so you really know if you're going to need that kind of functionality. Don't get seduced by, the crazy multi-module expensive thing, because you may or may not need that.
Great. We'll take a couple more questions here. We are about halfway through our time to answer questions, so we'll get through what we can. Keep in mind, if your question is not addressed by Catherine at this time, we can certainly have those addressed via email. And with that said, we will keep on rolling. So your next question, Catherine, if you start out with an idea of a target or niche market within your field of expertise, how general or specific should your initial approach be?
This is counterintuitive, but in general, the deeper and nichier you are, the more successful you are to begin with. In general, when you go to market with a product or service, the people you are or the companies you're targeting have some similar background to you. More or less, you're targeting some aspect of you or your previous career. And, while you're tempted to say, this happens a lot, with health coaches, but I could help anybody. I could help people in corporate. I could help single moms. I could help, and you get all excited that what you do could help a gazillion people, and it probably could. But if you go deep into one small niche that you know really well, you know where to spend your marketing time and your marketing dollars. If you try to hit a bunch of different markets, you're going scattershot. You're not going anywhere deep, and you throw away a lot of money, and you get really, really tired. When I tell you that one of the things you have to jealously manage is your time and how you spend your time as an independent consultant, I am not kidding.
Great. Along those lines, Catherine, can you talk a bit about helping a consultant define their niche and give a little guidance surrounding that?
Yes, I can. As I just said, it's apt to be some aspect of you and your career or something you've personally experienced, at least to begin with. So you're going to want to get very hands-on with paper or laptop and write down everything you know about this. There's an exercise called the Ideal Client Avatar exercise, where you pick one specific person or one specific client as your ideal, and then you dive into everything you can possibly know about them. What is their business, or what is their professional background? What industry are they in? What title level do they have? How long have they been there? What motivates them? Are they, very driven, or are they very status conscious, or are they, do they like status quo? Get into what Michael Port says, FEPS, the financial, emotional, physical, and even spiritual aspect of what drives these people. You need to get to know them as if they were your best friend. And then every conversation you have, every email you write, every marketing piece of collateral you write, everything you do is targeted at that one specific person. And it seems like you would then be excluding everybody else you talk to, but that's not what happens. When they read your marketing copy, they know that you understand them, you understand their problems, you can help solve their problems, and that's when people reach for their checkbook. That's when they pay you.
Great, thank you for that. A quick question on thought leadership. Does this mean being seen as a thought leader in a specific topic, for example, nonprofit education, or a thought leader regarding skills or products that are offered?
Either, both. I'll give you an example. A client of mine was a big data analytics expert. And you're thinking, wow, every time I turn on my computer, I see stuff about big data. Right. But she wanted a subject matter expert role with a consulting company and to bring in some independent client work. And we could call her an expert, and she was an expert, but we couldn't point to anything that said she was an expert. Like I said, external social proof is more valuable than what you say about yourself. And she wasn't quoted anywhere. So what we had to do was develop her point of view on the current state of the market, which industries were going to benefit from big data analysis. We had to get her writing content on her blog, published again on LinkedIn Pulse, then published again elsewhere on a site that publishes documents from a bunch of different experts. So it got in front of a lot of eyeballs. And then I got her some media interviews on a radio show. I got her an interview with a colleague of mine on entrepreneur.com. So all of a sudden, she went from saying she was an expert to a bunch of externally validated sources saying she was an expert. Because when you're interviewed as an expert on a third-party platform, nobody really questions that. You're an expert now. And she was. I'm not trying to say lie, but you need to make it so that somebody who does not know you sees this and sees you as a thought leader. So that translated to not only being a big data expert, but also to the specific services that she could offer as a solo consultant or as a subject matter expert through a third-party consulting firm.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. One other thing that's come up a couple of times on here, Catherine, is what exactly are body shops and how would you define those?
Yeah, I've had some really good luck with that. There are different business models for different types of consulting firms. Now you have, the big four, the Deloittes, the KPMGs, the EYs, and Accentures, and those sorts of global consultancies, and they will take you in as full-time employees, or occasionally, depending on the type of work you do, bring you in as a subject matter expert in addition to their client service delivery team. So if you have 30 years of experience in, let's say, financial market trading, they get something with a client, they may bring you in and you'll get paid a really nice hourly rate for just some very small section of an overall large project. That's one way. Now, there's the mid-tier firms that I've actually been hired in as a contract employee for a specific project because I had subject matter expertise and they actually needed me to land the project, but didn't want to take me on for full-time headcount, and I was totally happy with that. So I got some very generous hourly rate going in as part of the client service team, but the client didn't know that I wasn't, they may or may not have known, I'm not sure how they handled that, but I came in as a full member of the client service delivery team. Then there's the body shop aspect for like a company like RGP, Resources Global Professionals. I did a project with them, and their business model is different. They go out and they sell work, and then they staff it with people who they have in their registry, and you get paid for the projects that you do, and you can take on your own work on the side, you can have your own clients. When you roll off, you do not get paid. but it's a pretty sweet deal because you go in with a team of very competent, experienced professionals. You have their technology, and then you get paid on on their pay cycle. You submit timesheets just like you would at the consulting companies. And then when you roll off, you go back to doing, they either are able to staff you on another project or you go back to doing your own project work. So that's another model. And then, of course, there is the what are they called? The headhunting firms, the placement firms. So you can get some work through, temp agencies or temp to perm, that sort of thing too. So I guess in short, there's sort of 4 ways that you can leverage that.
Great. Catherine, we will have one last question and we'll stay along these lines of working with, various agencies. The question here is, can you speak to the pros and cons of working with other contractors, for example, subcontracting or possibly even starting up your own agency?
Interesting. Okay, I'm a big fan of subcontracting. Why? Because one of the problems of being an independent consultant is getting paid. The bigger the client, the longer they take to pay. So you're investing your hours, you're submitting your invoices. You may expect a 15 to 30 day payment, and the larger the company, you're going to get thrown into their 60, 90 day payment, which can wreak havoc on your cash flow and just have you losing your mind because you know that you're going to get paid, you're just not sure when. And meanwhile, the subcontractors under you or your vendors or your mortgage expect money that you haven't gotten yet. So when you go as a subcontractor, you're getting paid whether the person who's lead on the project has gotten paid or not. So it is a seriously sweet deal, in my opinion, because cash flow can, even when you're doing really, really well and you're sold out, you might actually be going broke because you haven't gotten paid yet.
Excellent. Catherine, thank you so much for your expertise and your input today. I think this was really invaluable for the consultants that we serve. And with that said, we will go ahead and get things wrapped up. Please keep in mind, within about a week, we will have a slide deck mailed out to anyone who is registered as a participant. For those who have requested additional information regarding MBO Partners and regarding Catherine, we will be getting that out to you as quickly as possible. So let's all give Catherine a silent round of applause for being with us and sharing her perspective. And we look forward to continuing to be in touch and hopefully hearing from the majority of you very soon. Thank you, and thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful afternoon.